Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another FIFA 22 video where today we are going to be discussing why you keep losing to bad players. Now, I'm sure this is a question, and I know this question I've asked myself many times, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have had the same sort of questions. You might be playing a game of FIFA, whether it be in Rivals, Draft, Champs, wherever it may be, and you are spanking someone, you're battering them, your XG, your shots, everything, loads of possession, loads of passes, loads of chances, and you still come out on the losing side and you just think, I did everything right in that game and I still lost. I don't get it. Now, one of the things that you need to understand when you're playing FIFA is it is a mental game more than your physical talent. It's far more important how your mental game is. Now, this might sound very silly and very boring, and some people will just throw this away, but I've done this many times. It was only a couple of weeks ago where I was 4-0 at my first couple of games in Champs. 4-0, was absolutely cruising, and everything was going good, feeling good. I then had this one game where it was exactly the same scenario. My XG at half-time was like 6.6. I had loads of possession, loads of passes, loads of chances. It felt like all my shots were either missing the goal or hitting the crossbar, or they were getting blocked. And by the end of the game, my opponent's XG was like 0.6, mine was like 8.4, and I lost 2-1. And you just think, man, how the hell have I lost that game? And then what happened, and I think this is something that happens a lot to other people as well, and it's not necessarily all to blame, but this is one of the big reasons I think. A lot of people will now go into that next game immediately, and they're tilted. They've just had that bad experience from that previous game, and it carries forward into the next game. And I know this is to be true because I went from 4-0 in that weekend league and I was 4-4, and every game I got more and more tilted. And generally what I do is you lose that game and you lose it and you think you're hard done by. You go immediately into that next game. You think, right, let me just pick up a win and then I'll take a break. And then you lose and now you're 4-1 and you think, right, I'm going to go to another game. And then you're 4-2. And before you know it, I was 4-4. And then I just had to stop. And I ended up finishing the weekend league 12-4. I then actually went and won 8 straight after I took a big break. And one of the things that I think happens is when you're playing, you become very narrow-minded and very focused. And you think the game is against you. You think that you're, for example, in one of those games, I took a shot and I was like, man, how the hell is this keeper save that? That's an incredible stop. And when I actually watched the game back a couple of, the next day, I watched some of my games back just to kind of like see where I go wrong and whatnot. And the shot actually was straight at the keeper. But at the time, my mentality was, because I thought the game's against me, I thought, oh, this shot must be in the top corner. And the shot actually turned out to be pretty much straight at the corner, and the keeper just parried it behind for a routine corner. So one of the things that I think causes people to lose against bad players is not necessarily the way they play and that they do anything, or that the game is scripted or anything like that. I think it's just that what happens in this game, and sometimes you'll lose these games, as I explained before, you have these massive XG, loads of chances, and you lose. I think that's just part of the game. And I think that's just part of the game. If you think about when Manchester City play against Watford, 99 times out of 100 or 98 times out of 100, they'll win the game. But there is that 1 or 2 times where Watford will win that match. And that's no disrespect to any Watford fans that might be watching, but it's the same sort of principle. You eventually, the small team, the underdog team will win, and that happens. And I think we as FIFA players think that we're entitled to win every game that we're dominating, and that's not the case in real football. I know FIFA is not supposed to be like real football and it's not supposed to emulate it, but when I try and play now, I try and do and use that sort of metaphor as to, sometimes the small team is going to win. But what you have to do afterwards is, if you lose the game, you feel hard done by, you have to take that break. If you go into that next game immediately, every single time, you will lose that game. And all of a sudden, you've gone from that 4-0 perfect start, and before you know it, you're 4-2, and your weekend's starting to fall apart. So you have to take that break. So I don't think it's necessarily that people are losing to bad players. I don't think it's probably not because you're doing anything wrong. It's just simply you're probably going into that backup game, that next game after that hard done by loss. And then your weekend falls apart from there. Now, people may think, for example, that teams and tactics and all these things may play a role in the game. Now, if you're someone who is losing to players consistently, and if you're someone who finishes your weekend league, for example, and you finish, let's say, 6-14, right? And you think, man, of those 14 losses, 10 of those losses, well, I was hard done by. And if you think that's you on a consistent basis, the truth be told, is you're probably just not as good as you think you are at FIFA, because whilst there will be 1 or 2 losses, pretty much I can say for myself, you know, like for example, last weekend I finished 12-5, and of my 5 losses, there was probably 1, maybe 2 at a stretch, but probably more realistically just the 1 where I was the better player and got a bit unlucky. But the other 3/maybe 4 losses I deserve to lose. Now, if you're someone who sat there going, man, I lost 10 games this week that I shouldn't have lost, I got cheesed out of 10 games, the reality is you're probably just not as good as you think you are, and I think that's probably quite a disingenuous statement where you're saying that you should be winning 10 more games than you should be, and I think that's just not the truth. You know, you're probably just biased at how good you think you are at the game. No doubt in that 10-game stretch, there'll be 1 or 2 games that, you know, 3 games maybe at most, where you might have been hard done by. But I guarantee you've not been hard done by in 8, 9, 10 games a week, because the game is not, you know, a lot of people might think that FIFA, obviously, this year, some people think it's not a great game. I can say for myself, and I think most people will admit, it's better than it has been in previous years. It's a much better game than it was in FIFA 20, FIFA 21. In my opinion, I think it's far better. I still think there's definitely some issues in the game that obviously still need to be made better, but that's the case for every game. You could pick holes in every game. But I think on the whole, it is a better game. It's more playable. I find that I've played more games of FIFA this year than I have in previous years to this stage. So I definitely think it's more of a replayable game. But for people to sit there and say that they got cheesed out of 8, 9, 10 games a weekend league, or, you know, they lost 7 in a row and they shouldn't have lost any of them, I think you're just lying to yourself. I think you just think you're better than you are, and I think you need to be a bit more realistic with your expectations and how good you actually are. Now, if you genuinely think that you're doing things wrong, recording games is such a valuable tool. In one of the losses that I took when I was 4-0, went to 4-4, one of the things that I did was I watched back, I think it was the 3rd loss, and there was something that happened in the 3rd loss where I remember I was in a great position. I was in the position for a cutback, cut it back, had a shot, got saved. And I thought, man, how the hell's the keeper saved that, blah, blah, blah. And normally what I would do is I would cut it back to the guy, and rather than shoot immediately, because there's a good chance the keeper's going to save it or it's going to get blocked, because of the way the defenders position themselves this year, they're a lot more clever. Normally, I would always look for the next pass across. So I cut it back, and then pass it back again, and then shoot, because at the back post, the guy is always free. And normally I would do that, but obviously when I'm playing angry and I'm playing tilted, I'm not thinking clearly. I'm not looking for that extra pass. So rather than looking for that extra pass, if I'm just chill and I'm in a good flow and I'm winning, I'll look for that extra pass, cut it back, bang, it's a goal, it's 1-0. Instead, I'm playing angry. Oh my God, how does he save that? And then it just, you get more angry. And hence why we circle back to the start of the video where we said it's a mentality thing. FIFA is more about mental than about actual physical skill. If you can control how you play, you do far better. Whenever I'm playing chill and whenever I'm kind of relaxed and in a good groove, I'm playing some great FIFA. And when I'm kind of stressed and a bit angry is the times that I always go on big losing streaks, and then you start throwing games, you start losing games against terrible players, and it is always because you get tilted, you get angry, and you just end up getting more stressed. And the more stressed you get, 100% can confirm the worse you play, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse from there. You always then come back after having a massive break and you start spanking people again generally. So the biggest tip I would take from this video is remember that it is all about the mental game for FIFA, and you know, just don't take it so seriously. Don't get so stressed. And it might seem very, very easy to say that, but you will find that you'll relax a lot more when you play, and you obviously play a hell of a lot better. So make sure you take these tips going forwards next time you go into your games, and hopefully you should chill a little bit more, and you'll obviously start picking up more of those wins. You will still come across the odd game here and there where you'll just get hard done by and you will get cheesed, and it happens. It happens to me, it happens to everybody, it happens. But if it's happening way too often, you need to take some of these tips forwards and remember these things, and I guarantee you your results will start to improve. So if you did find this video useful, guys, make sure you subscribe and do drop a thumbs up if you do enjoy the content. But that is all for today, guys. Have an awesome day. I'm out.